you can see the emojis.
Uh-huh.
That emoji it's like
Hmm.
I was trying to find it, but it's not on here because I thought that would be so funny to like put that little emoji up because that it's like to me that's the drawing a blank. It's like, oh, okay, what did I have for breakfast?
Welcome to English with Lewis. Let's go!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to English with Lewis. And today I have a special guest. Kate, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you today?
Well, I'm a little bit under the weather, I must admit. So I've
Oh,
been coughing, and here I have some tissues with me. So I'm a bit under the weather, a little bit sick, but it's nothing major.
good. I'm glad to hear.
But welcome to a channel. And first, for those of you who are watching this who are not familiar with Kate and her content, Kate, the ball is in your court. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody about you.
Wonderful. So, my name is Kate, and I am an English teacher from Canada. I live in Germany. I've been here for 12 years, and I specialize primarily on business English. So, I go into international companies and I give English lessons to their employees in their conference rooms.
Perfect, fantastic. And business English, is this something that when you started teaching English, you always wanted to specialize in?
No, no,
No,
actually,
not at all.
no. Not at all. No, when I first started teaching English, I was teaching in an elementary school and I had 800 kids.
Wow.
They were so fun, but so tiring. And I didn't like the book. It felt very uncreative and very boring. So when that contract was finished, I moved to adults. And I was teaching adults in the morning and running a daycare in the afternoon. I loved this job and I would have stayed in this job. But right as that contract was finishing after 1 year, I got the offer to teach in one of the best schools in the country, which was an all girls high school with 1,600 high school girls. But
Mhm.
I was in complete control of my lessons, complete control of the camps and everything. And I moved there and I loved it. I stayed there for a year and a half and then I moved to Germany. Now, in Germany, to work with children, I have to have a special certification,
Mhm.
which I did not need when I moved to Korea. So for me, the idea of working with adults, it was like I can work with adults or I can go back to school and get the certification to deal with children.
Mhm.
But for me, I'd already noticed that I preferred working with adults. I love sitting down, having a cup of coffee, and talking about different industries versus sitting down with 30 children and, stop talking and listen, settle down. So for me, the idea of working with adults was just so much better. And I love it. I prefer it so much more.
Perfect. So yeah, I guess you couldn't turn it down. You couldn't turn down the opportunity. You couldn't reject the opportunity. Um,
Absolutely.
it's interesting. It's interesting because I'm used to teaching usually Spanish students or French students. I was in Australia for a year, and there I was teaching a range of different nationalities, and there were some Korean students as well. But in your experience, what were the major differences between teaching people in Korea and teaching people in Germany?
Ooh. So,
Hmm.
I mean, that's a really great question. I'll say teaching adults in Korea and teaching adults in Germany, only because the daycare and the high school can't really compare to teaching adults here in Germany.
Mhm.
When I was teaching in Korea, I was teaching a group classes in the library, but it was meant to be free for anyone who could come. So 1 week would be the head of medicine from the local hospital and
Uh-huh.
three retired teachers. Or like it was just always different. And then because of that, it couldn't really grow much more. What I do now is that I go into the companies here and I teach their employees in their conference rooms. And I have always felt that it's really important that my students, specifically clients, I say, want to come to me because they need to put down their work in order to then come, like, move away from their office and spend an hour and a half with me. So I tell them, bring a cup of coffee. We're going to laugh. You're going to talk. This will be relaxed. If there's a phone call you need to answer, just go. Like, I don't put any pressure on them whatsoever to make it feel like a classroom, because I don't want them to have that feeling of, oh, now I have to stop doing what I'm doing and go to English class. I want them to be like, yes, English class, flip, and then come to me. So the feeling is very, very different than it was back in Korea as well. Like, that feeling wasn't there, but it might have just been the programs as well that I was running. So, it's hard to compare.
It's interesting also because you mentioned going to the companies, into their conference rooms. And before the pandemic, I was always cycling around Seville, going from one office to another office, taking my laptop or a tablet and teaching in person. Then, of course, the pandemic happened and we were all forced to stay at home. Everything changed very quickly. We had to adapt and think on our feet, like think as we were doing things. And now I only teach online. And I'm so used to just using Zoom. But in your case, do you still go to the offices?
So, yes. First, yes. I actually do three things now, whereas before COVID, I did one thing. So before the pandemic, I was only teaching live in classes. And I remember also saying, if I don't show up, I don't get paid. If you don't show up, I don't get paid. If my kid is sick, I don't get paid. And if my kid's grandmother is sick, then she can't take my baby, and therefore my baby can't go somewhere, so therefore I can't work, right? So there was a lot of instability with my business at that time. Since then, the pandemic, I also have part of my job where I'm teaching online. I've got clients in Russia, clients in India. We've got students and team members all over the world. And then I'm also giving counseling, business advice to other teachers who are looking to start their online businesses. So for me, I do those three things. And then because of that, I get a great variation of what it is that I do. I'm outside of the house and then also inside of the house. So today I'm Zoom ready, but in my pajama pants. And then my lessons afterwards, I will still be in my pajama pants, but then lessons tomorrow, obviously I'll be wearing normal pants for my normal clients.
I mean, it sounds good. To be honest, right now I'm wearing a white formal shirt, but I'm wearing my pajamas down below, of course,
Perfect.
as always. And the only reason I'm wearing a white shirt is because I thought, well, Kate's on the show. She's an expert in business English. So this conversation could revolve around business English. So I should dress for the occasion as well.
I love it.
I should get a tie. Who knows? But now we know a little bit more about Kate. And one thing that I was thinking before we actually joined this Zoom was, 2 years ago, more or less, when I started my Instagram and TikTok account, I messaged lots of other teachers who were already posting content online. And I reached out to them and was like, hey, I'd like to grow a following and start making videos. It would be an absolute honor if you could collaborate with me. And Kate was actually the first person to be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's collaborate. Oh, it's cute, isn't it?
Nice. I like that.
Almost 2 years to the day. And
Wow.
I have sometimes a very strange, good memory because I actually remember what we posted. And I remember we posted a collaboration reel teaching 2 or 3 different business English expressions. And they were all using the main verb to draw. And of course, draw can be used in many ways. You can literally draw a picture. You can draw the curtains also if you close them. And if there is a football match, for example, and it is 1-1, it is a draw. Although in American English, they say it is a tie,
True.
which is why in tennis you have a tie break to break the tie. But anyway, I remember the expressions were to draw a blank and back to the drawing board.
Yes. Yes. Wow, that is a really good memory. You you are that, yeah, I do not remember that. I mean, you say it, I remember it, but I would have never picked that out off the top of my head. I would have never been like, we did draw.
See, I don't remember what I did on Saturday night, but for some strange reason, I remember teaching these expressions.
Right. What did you eat for breakfast? I don't know.
Beats me. No idea. But let me go over the first expression, which is to draw a blank. So if you draw a blank, it means that you're trying to think of something, perhaps an idea or a solution. You're brainstorming, and you just can't think of it. You have no creativity, no ideas. So you draw a blank is when you're trying to think of something and you're not able to. So the other
Yeah.
day, I was brainstorming, thinking of ideas for videos, and I drew a blank. I couldn't think of anything.
Yeah.
So, Kate, over to
Sorry,
you.
I was actually just looking because on here you can see the emojis. That emoji that it's like, I was trying to find it, but it's not on here because I thought that would be so funny to like put that little emoji up because that it's like to me that's the drawing a blank. It's like, oh, okay, what did I have for breakfast? I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of anything. I don't remember the moment of waking up and making myself, was it cereal or a sandwich or whatever. I don't remember. I'm drawing a blank. So if it helps to think of that emoji, that's a good one. Exactly. I'm not
Maybe that's what we can use for the thumbnail. Just, raising one eyebrow at the same time.
Yes. Yes. Yours is definitely better than mine. Mine's
It's so weird because this is the only eyebrow that I can raise. And then this one, when I try, it's like something's going wrong. I'm not sure.
That's basically my face now. Like I could do them both at the same time. That's no problem. But the idea that one raises and the other one doesn't, no, not my
Man
skill.
of many talents, my outstanding memory and my raising of the eyebrow.
Perfect.
The other expression was what was it? Back to the drawing board. Kate, what does it mean?
So if you are, this is actually a great one for business English. Let's say we're trying something new and it's not working out. What we were hoping for is not coming to fruition. We go back to the drawing board, we start back at the beginning and we try something else.
Fact.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it relates perfectly to drawing a blank. If you're drawing a blank, then you say, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see what happens and let's start over. Let's start again.
I like that.
Lovely. So we're going to continue to go over and teach some business idioms and phrasal verbs. But let's continue having a chat too. Kate, one thing I know about you is that your parents used to travel around a lot when you were growing up. Is that right?
Yes. So my parents they're now retired, but my parents were Canadian diplomats. So when I was 9, we moved on our first international posting to Japan, and we lived in Tokyo for 3 years. Yes. So I learned a bit of Japanese. I went to an American school at the time, lived in a little town or a sub town, I guess, in Tokyo. Took the subways all the time. It was very, very, very interesting. And then we moved back to Canada, and I just happened to be the perfect age at that time to be put into a program that they call late French immersion. So a French immersion program would take an English-speaking child like myself, put them through all their schooling in French. This is the late version of that. So it's after a few years of French or of English school, which is my first language. Then
Mhm.
I then start taking math, history, science, everything in French, in the idea that I would then also become bilingual. So I did this for 2 years. I got pretty good at French. And then when I was 13 years old, my family moved on our second international posting to Kuwait, and we lived there for 4 years.
Okay.
So I didn't need French or Japanese at the time. I just needed Arabic. So then I had to learn Arabic. Lived there until I was 17. And then I moved back to Canada on my own. My parents moved to the States. It just happened to be that my hometown and their hometown in the States are right along the border to each other.
Mhm.
So I was there near them for a little while. After that, they lived in Canada. Then they moved to Malaysia. They were in Malaysia for 4 years. I was there twice at 3, 4 months at a time. And then they left Malaysia and got cross posted, which means like the embassies, they have their home base, which is our capital. And then
Mhm.
you go to a posting, you come back. You go to a posting, you come back. You go to a posting, you come back. This way, they were at the cross or at the posting and got cross posted to Mongolia. And then they lived in Mongolia and Ulaanbaatar for 2 years.
Huh.
Then my dad went back to Canada, and instead of going to his normal everyday job, he was full time learning Mandarin. So 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, with the goal of getting to C2 level Mandarin before he moved to Shanghai in September 2019. So he got there 3 months before things closed down. And then they weren't able to leave China for about 3 years.
Okay.
And then they were locked inside of China, yeah.
This
Um,
is an interesting childhood. I think about mine and just like staying in the same house all of my life and my mum and dad having these normal mundane jobs. So what
so,
was it? Yeah, what was it
you
like
know,
moving around so much and having to learn these very difficult languages at the same time? Like French, I guess, is a little bit easier
yeah.
for native English speakers, but Arabic and Japanese, it's about as hard as it gets.
And then when they were in Malaysia, I was in Korea. And then after I left Korea, I came to Germany. So I have the five languages. It's Japanese, Arabic, French, Korean, and German. Regarding my childhood, I always just say I never knew anything different. And most of the kids that I went to school with were also diplomats or their parents were international business people. So
Mhm.
they had also moved around quite a bit. Like I didn't grow up thinking this is so weird. But now I look back and I'm like, that was really weird.
Okay.
But I loved it personally. And like that's, I moved back to Canada on my own when I was 17. I went to university and I knew for myself I wanted to keep traveling, which is why I went to Korea. So they do a lot of job fairs as you get closer to being finished with university. They do a lot of job fairs, and there's always student rep or like people representing schools in Korea, for example, or in Japan. Those are the two highest paid international jobs for university
Mhm.
graduates. Um, and I just figured I'd already been to Japan, so I guess I'll go to Korea. Like that was my method of elimination. It was just like, well, I was there already, so I guess I'll do that one now. And it
Uh-huh.
was there that I met a very nice German man, came here to Germany, built a house. We've got two kids. And I mean, I have no intention of leaving. I love it here.
Perfect. And what is it that you like about living in Germany and German culture?
So there's a couple different things. I mean, I've always lived in so many different places. So one thing that I noticed when I moved here was for the first time of living internationally outside of Canada, I am not immediately, visibly the foreigner. When I lived in Japan, when I was a child, I had really naturally blonde hair.
Uh-huh.
And we would go out to these festivals. I actually hated it because I didn't like the attention. But we would go out to these festivals, these street festivals, and people would come across the road just to touch my head
Oh, really?
because they believed that my hair was lucky, almost like Buddha's belly, that you go out of your way to touch it. So I would have people touching me all the time. Um,
I'm guessing that doesn't happen in Germany.
No, they knew immediately that I was not one of them.
Uh,
When I was in Korea, there was another moment. It was my first day, and my co-teacher had picked me up from the airport, brought me to the school. I walked into the school, and I had my Angelina Jolie moment where I walk in and all 800 students see me and come running.
uh,
And then I pick up my suitcase later, and I'm going to see my new apartment. And there is an old man, that stereotypical Asian man. He's like literally bent over, incredibly old, walking with a cane, walking by. And at some point, he looked at me, and he got this really shocked look on his face. And he started, he just like reached out his little old finger, and he was coming to touch me. But
okay.
where he was standing, it would have been an inappropriate touch. Let's just
Uh-huh.
say that. And I was really shocked, really uncomfortable, and my co-teacher just started laughing. And I thought, this old man is trying to touch my body. Like, what? Why are you laughing? And she said, he thinks he's dying, and you're an angel, and he's trying to prove that he's not.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
okay. Either way, I don't want this. Like, I don't want him to touch me. But like those kind of experiences only happen when you're completely, clearly a foreigner. And here in Germany, I'm not that. I get to just be a normal person, which is refreshing.
You're not an angel anymore, so
No, an
back to
angel,
reality.
an Angelina Jolie.
Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that was the
Oh,
case. Like
Buddha.
I remember traveling a little bit around Asia, and I
Mm,
was in where was I? In Indonesia and in Malaysia.
mm.
And when I was there with my girlfriend, it's true that people sometimes came up to me and were asking for like a selfie or a photo. And I was
Yes.
like, why? What's going on? And then I ran into another English guy, and he was ginger. So he had red hair and freckles. And
Yeah.
he was telling me, like, oh, mate, I've been going
I'm
through this for the
exhausted.
last few years. I'm ginger.
Yeah.
People think I'm so unique and special.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK and in most of Europe and North America,
Hmm.
it doesn't happen. People usually don't want to be ginger. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
yeah, I guess that's
mean,
not the case in Asia.
yeah, I guess that. Yes. I mean, yeah, like I said, growing up blonde, it was very, very, you're just different. And then people value that difference there. It's nice. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's too much. I remember going out to the park with a couple of my friends, and the parents would just bring their child up and say, talk to my child. And I'm like, I'm sitting here drinking a beer on a Saturday. No. Like, can you please give me a little bit of peace and space as well? But then the other side, it is just so special for them. Like, I remember my first, and I don't have hairy arms. I swear to you, they're
I'm the
not that
complete
bad.
opposite.
Yeah, you're much bigger. But people would come up and stroke my arm and they'd go, "Ooh, so hairy." And
Wow. Imagine if they saw mine.
I'm like, yes, you would. I mean, you could charge people to stroke the hairy arms.
Like 5 yen, please.
Exactly.
Oh,
So yeah, it's and then but the same thing in Kuwait, right? When I was there, I was there from 13 until 17 years old. I was now naturally darker, like my hair just got darker over the course of the years. Um, so I wasn't blonde, but I'm still a very tall white lady in a Middle Eastern country. So, I walk into a restaurant and people kind of go, "Oh gosh,
it's
I
like
just want some chili cheese fries," or like whatever. I'm just here for a milkshake.
yeah, yeah. It sounds like an interesting way of growing up, living, and think about all the stories that you have to tell from all of your
Yeah.
cultural exchanges and culture shocks as well. That it's awesome.
On that note, you'd mentioned earlier that you'd lived in the same house and all of that. And I have very much like I can basically like I've been here in Germany now for 12 years, and I've been in my current house for 7. But I can basically look back at any part of my life and know at least within 2 years when that happened,
Mhm.
just based on what country I lived in at the time, what thing I was experiencing at the time. Like I think a lot of people see their lives as like different chapters, where mine is like complete books. You know, Japan, it was like Japan and then moved out of Japan and then French school and then moved out of French school and then Kuwait and then left Kuwait, university, Korea, and then Germany. Right? The idea, like my life, there's no transition, there's no gray zone between any of those books. It is just like, those are stories that happened, and now I move on to the next stories that happen.
Everything is black and white. I guess it's so different, one experience from the other.
Exactly.
And now you're settled.
Yes.
You're settled in Germany.
Yes.
Awesome. Let's continue speaking about business English with a couple of idioms. So I'll get started with, two. Why not? And one is to touch base.
Mm-hmm.
If you touch base with someone, you contact them to check how things are going, to see the current process of a project or a meeting. I'm going to touch base with my boss just to see what the current situation is. So to touch base with someone. And this is kind of similar to a phrasal verb that I used earlier, which was to reach out to someone. So I mentioned that I reached out to Kate a couple of years ago. I contacted her. So if you reach out to someone, you contact, you message them, you email them, you phone them. And it's similar to touch base, but usually if you touch base, you are contacting them to see what the current situation is.
Although that's really interesting, because when you were talking about touching base, I was thinking of a phrasal verb too, but it wasn't reach out.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us. I'm all ears.
It was follow up.
Uh-huh.
But reach out and follow up are not the same. So touch base is the same as reach out, and it's the same as follow up, but follow up and touch base are not the same. Because reach out, I should say. Reach out, in my opinion, is the thing you do first. Like, you reached out to me. Would you like to come chat with me on Zoom? If, let's say, I say, yes, I would love to. How about next week? Then you follow up, right? Then you follow up. Yeah, how about Thursday? How about Tuesday? What about this time for you? So to me, touching base is both initiating conversation, like reaching out, and then also following up or reconnecting, like following up.
Perfect. I love phrasal verbs.
Me too.
So
phrasal verbs.
Let's follow that up. Let's keep that going. And another one I'd like to go over, another two idioms, which they both mean exactly the same. And both of them mean to do more than you need to do when speaking about work. So if you exceed the expected level of work, you either go the extra mile.
Nice.
Or you go above and beyond.
That's the one I was thinking of, yes.
Yes. So for example, let's say I only need to work from 8 until 3 this week in order to finish all the paperwork. But in fact, I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to go the extra mile and do overtime to finish the paperwork, but also reach out to potential clients and then maybe follow up with them later.
Oh,
wow. All right. Okay. Over to you. Let's hear an idiom or a phrasal verb that you particularly like related to business English.
Yeah. So I was actually discussing this one a little while ago, and I don't. So the expression means that something is just really easy. It's almost, it takes no effort whatsoever. And it's just something that's really easy that you just don't even consider it like a win or a task, right? Maybe this is a North American thing. You'll have to let me know your thoughts. But the concept of low-hanging fruit, right? It's like just imagine a big apple tree, for example, and there's one apple right here. You pick it off. It takes no effort whatsoever. Now you have your apple. This is low-hanging fruit. Okay. But the idea, that you can do something, let's just do some easy tasks, the low-hanging fruit, and then later we can finish the rest. Would you ever say it this way?
You see, I'm familiar with it, and I've definitely heard it being used on podcasts or series or films.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if I'd use it personally, but I think that's an interesting thing that each person has their own expressions and phrasal verbs and like words in general that they
Yes.
like and others that they don't really like. If
Yeah.
you spend enough time with someone, it's inevitable that you will start to use the same words and expressions that this person uses. Their behavior and their language kind of rubs off on you,
Mhm.
affects you, and you start to adopt it without you even realizing. I mentioned this maybe last week when I was speaking to a friend that I started using a lot of words that my girlfriend used in Spanish that maybe weren't that common for the rest of the world, but because she used these words so much, I started using them as well. It rubbed off on me. So I'm familiar with the concept of a low hanging fruit, but
Yeah.
personally, I don't really use it.
I'll use that. That's all right. Okay. I said this recently to my students as well. They had, so I have a team here in Australia, in Würzburg as well, where I am. And sometimes I can't make it to my lessons, so I have my teacher take over for me. And she's from Australia.
Uh-huh.
And she used the word dodgy.
Okay, love it.
Right. And so like they had it all in their notebooks and then they came back, they put their notebooks down. They were like, Kate, we learned a new word, dodgy. Talk about it. And I was like,
Eh?
I don't think
What?
I've ever used that word. It's not it like I know exactly what it means, just like you with the low-hanging fruit. I know exactly what it means, but I'm not going to personally use it. Maybe similar between you and I, like reckon. Do you reckon that's a good idea? I know what you mean by that. It's very common in England, but I personally, as a Canadian person, would never use the word reckon. I would say, what do you think? What's your opinion? What do you think? Yeah.
What do you
But
reckon?
what do you reckon?
But just to go over that, for those of you who might be interested and you're asking yourself, like, dodgy? What? What on
Yeah.
earth does that mean? If someone or something is dodgy, it's kind of a place that isn't very nice, or it's suspicious, or not very trustworthy. I could describe a bar as being dodgy if maybe it's a little bit dangerous or seedy. I could describe a person who's dodgy, who doesn't really tell you the truth, or they do things that are out of the ordinary. Is a bit dodgy. Maybe take everything he says with a pinch of salt
Or
because
maybe someone's acting dodgy and then you don't really trust what they're doing. You know, I don't know if my birthday is coming up and my best friends have been acting dodgy. Maybe they're making a surprise party for me.
oh,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
I know.
Also, let's just go over maybe one more phrasal verb each, and then we'll finish off speaking about business English and business English courses that people can do if they're interested in going deeper into their knowledge. So, I'd like to explain the phrasal verb, which is to roll out.
Mm.
And the reason I've chose this one is because it's not quite as common as, for example, take on or turn down, which I mentioned earlier. So if you roll something out, it's usually used for big companies that are introducing a new product or service and they're putting it on the market. So let's roll out the new, I don't know,
Do you iPhone 12, 17?
exactly. Let's roll out the new iPhone 12. When in doubt, when you are drawing a blank, iPhone, Apple.
Phone works.
So to roll out is to officially make a service or a product available. And it's when this comes out and it's available on the market. We're going to roll out the new iPhone 12, for example.
I'm
Okay,
pretty
thank you
sure
for
they're
helping me.
15 by now.
Now, over to you.
Very nice. Okay. One I like is to see the big picture, right? So especially when we're talking business English, you don't want to focus on too many of the tiny details. You want to be looking at the big picture. And this is just the idea that you almost like zoom back a little bit and take more into consideration than just these little tiny things. So for me, that's always one of my favorites, is to see the big picture.
Perfect. Open your mind, you know? Awesome. So before we call it a day and before we finish off with this chat, if people are interested in learning more business English with you, is there anywhere they could go or anything they could study? I'm setting you up perfect.
I was gonna say. Yes, so I guess the first thing that you can do if you're interested in learning more business English, I give tons of free daily tips and tricks on my Instagram channel, which is english.anywhere.de_Kate. Maybe you can tag me in there wherever this ends up.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, so we do also have two other options. So my best friend and I have created a business English course, which we actually created for a company in India. It's a Fortune 500 company in India, all about service-based stuff. It's how to give bad news, how to manage complaints, how to write professional emails, how to answer the phone appropriately. And all of these videos between 4 to 8 minutes long that you can use kind of as a resource like a book that you just keep and you've got. And then there's tons of templates that you can access to improve your business English. We also have a membership that meets 3 times per week. And then you can come and join. We've got teachers from England, Canada, and the States. And we every week, so we've got discussion clubs, we've got game nights, and then we've got a business English skills hour where we just focus on making sure that you're improving your English week by week by week. Yeah.
So the possibilities are endless. Check Kate out on her Instagram so you can brush up on your business English every single day. To brush up on is to improve existing skills just a little bit, to polish them. But I think that's enough for today. As I said, I'm a bit under the weather. I need to blow my nose. And time to grab a bite to eat as well. But thank you so much, Kate, for joining me. I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation, improving the business English. If you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to write them in the comments. And that's all, folks.
Amazing. Thank you, Lewis. And thank you to everyone who's here. I hope to see you soon.
Awesome. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you next time.